In today's video, we're taking a look at how to make homemade ham easy and simple. This is so easy, anyone could do. Everything that we use on the video, we're gonna leave a link on the description. So you woke up today and you're noticing the holidays are creeping in on you. Don't worry, here at the StatUpBox team, we've got your back. So the first thing that you're gonna need is a piece of pork, preferably dead. If not, we'll give you a few seconds and we'll wait for you. Now that you're sure that it's not moving, you can either choose a pork shoulder, a Boston butt, the picnic. No matter what piece of pork you choose, the technique is going to be the same. You can choose to leave the skin on or to remove it. In our case, we're gonna choose to remove it. And we're gonna choose to do some crackling on a later date. But if you choose to leave it on, then you wanna score it and mark it as a checkerboard. Little squares everywhere. Not only it's gonna make it look nice, but once you serve it on the table, you can actually play a game too. But depending on the cut that you chose, it could have come without skin. So that just made your job a lot easier. And because we're using curing salt for this recipe, we need to weigh our piece of meat. And as you can see, it's about 7.9 pounds or about 3,583.38 grams. This recipe can work from anything to 7 to 10 pounds. But if you want to be exact for the amount of curing salt you want to use, there are curing salt calculators on the internet. And remember, it's Prague #1, not Himalayan salt. And today we're using a wet brine. So that means we're taking this piece of meat to the spa. And you know our spa is legendary. You just don't come out the same after your visit. And the first thing that we're gonna do is heat up our first batch of ingredients. We take 1 quart of water to the stove, or about 947 grams of water, and heat it up almost to a boil. Then our second ingredient is going to be 1 tablespoon of pickling spice, or about 8 grams. And if you don't have pickling spice, like we don't, this is how we do our pickling spice. Our first ingredient is 1 tablespoon of whole allspice, or about 6 grams. If you're using grounded allspice, 1/4 of a teaspoon. Next, we're gonna add 1 teaspoon of red pepper flake, or about 2 grams. Next, we're gonna add 2 whole sticks of cinnamon. If you're using grounded, you could put 1/4 of a teaspoon. 1 teaspoon of coriander seeds, or about 2 grams. If using in powder form, you can use 1/4 of a teaspoon. 2 bay leaves, 1 teaspoon of ground ginger, or about 5 grams, 2 tablespoons of whole mustard seed, or about 4 grams. If you're using grounded, you can use half a teaspoon. And lastly, 1 teaspoon of grounded clove, which is about 2 grams. If using whole cloves, you can use 2 teaspoons. And there we have our pickling spice. We mix this in, remove it from the stove, and we can dump it on our brining container. Now that we have our pickling spice well mixed, we're ready to start completing our brine solution. The first ingredient is 2 cups of kosher salt, or about 482 grams. Our next ingredient is 2 tablespoons of pink curing salt, Prague #1, which is about 34 grams. Our next ingredient is 2 cups of brown sugar, or about 400 grams. And now we're gonna go ahead and mix everything well. Now our brine solution is ready. In total, we're gonna use 6 quarts of water. We already used 1. So that means if going to school all these years worked out, that should be 5 left, or about 4,730 grams. And at the same time, this water is gonna help cool the solution a lot faster. We're gonna let the solution rest until it comes to room temperature. And now we're ready to place our piece of meat in the jacuzzi. And now comes the hardest part of the whole video, and it is waiting. We have to let it rest for a minimum, in our case, for 4 days, which comes out to, per every pound of meat, we let it rest for 1 day, meaning 8 pounds, 4 days, 10 pounds, 5 days. So basically, every 906 grams of meat in weight, you let it rest 1 day. So now that we filled your mind, brain, heart, soul with numbers, data, math, you can take a break for a couple of days. As an optional step, you can flip the meat over halfway through the day process. So that means 4 days on the second day, 5 days on 2.5 days. So now that you learn how to slice days in half, we've come to the second hardest part of the video, and it's bathing your piece of pork. So you want to wash it down with water to remove all the salt, and we do this because if not, it's going to be super salty. But an easier way that we like to do it is just removing all the brine, cleaning the container, placing it with fresh water, and placing the piece of meat back on the container and letting it rest for 24 more hours on the refrigerator to remove any excess of salt. But if you want it right away, you could just take it to the sink and spray away. Now that we drowned our victim, I mean hotel guest, bathe our hotel guest, we can go ahead and pat it dry. Hopefully that tip will be worth it. As you can see, the change of color on the meat means we've gotten a good cure. The solution has penetrated and the victim is happy. Now we've gotten to the part of the video where we got into the fork on the road. You can either choose to smoke your meat, and we don't mean that kind of smoking, or you can place it to cook on the oven the old-fashioned way. In our case, we're gonna choose to smoke it on our electric smoker until it reaches an internal temperature of 145 degrees Fahrenheit or about 62.7 Celsius, and we're gonna have the electric smoker set to 250 degrees Fahrenheit or about 121.1 Celsius. If you're doing it on the oven, you can place your oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit or 176.6 Celsius. If you don't have a smoker, we have a video on how to smoke on a gas grill. We'll leave a link on the description. We also have another video on how to smoke on a charcoal grill, and depending on the technique you choose to cook your ham, this might take from 4 to 8 hours, and depending also on the weight of the meat. Meanwhile, we wait for the internal temperature to get to 145 degrees Fahrenheit, we can start building our glaze. Our first ingredient is 1 tablespoon of honey, or about 22 grams. In our case, we're using agave. Our next ingredient is 1/4 cup of Dijon mustard, or about 62 grams. If you don't have Dijon mustard, you can use regular mustard like we're using right now. Next, we're using 1/4 cup of sugar, or about 50 grams. And lastly, we're gonna go ahead and mix that in well. Now that we have our facial mask ready, we're ready to check on our guest. We can go ahead and open the sauna and check the internal temperature. We finally reach 145 degrees Fahrenheit, or about 62.7 Celsius. Now comes the fun part for our guest. It's gonna get oiled up on every inch of that body. We're gonna place the glaze on every nook and cranny that we can see. Now that our guest is happy, we're gonna go ahead and turn on the oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit, or about 204 Celsius, and this is gonna help to set that glaze, give it that shiny look and that awesome taste. And we're just gonna set it in the oven for a few minutes. 5-10 minutes should be enough. Now you're ready for the holidays. You can pat yourself on the back for a job well done. You can let it cool down for a bit and it's ready to serve. Or you can save it on a vacuum sealed bag and have it ready for that special day. And then the only thing that you have to do is heat it up, just like the ones you buy at the market. Here at the StatUpBox team, we salute you. You are a legend. Don't forget, if you liked the video, please give us a thumbs up. That really helps. If you have any questions, place them in the comment section below. Either someone in the StatUpBox team or someone in the YouTube community can help you out with an answer. Don't forget to subscribe, follow us on social media. Thank you for watching, and here's a link to our latest video.